Hi everyone, this is Kelly Leidig, and I am here to talk to you today about Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. So I wanted to start with a definition of psychosocial just so I can make sure we're all on the same page. According to Merriam-Webster, it involves both psychological, that would be mental, and social aspects. Here's a nice visual setup of what the different stages are. Here you have the ages, roughly, that the stages correspond to, and the names of all the stages. So the basic theory was first put forth in 1958. It states that personality develops in a predetermined order of 8 stages, which we just saw in the last slide. These stages begin in infancy and last until adulthood. So you're never complete with the stages, you're always in some stage. Each of the 8 stages contains a psychosocial crisis which helps the personality develop. You have no choice but to face the crisis and try to resolve it. These developments can be positive or negative in nature. If you successfully close out the phase, you gain a positive virtue. If you do not, there are negative consequences to not finishing the stage. The crises involve the social's needs, the individual's needs, that would be the psycho part of the term, and these are in conflict with societal needs, and that would be the social aspect. Successful completion of each stage leads to a particular virtue. You'll notice that at the end of each slide. So let's start with stage 1. Stage 1 is trust versus mistrust, and as you can tell by our photo, this roughly corresponds with the first year of life. It involves the infant looking to his or her caregiver for stability. This is obviously because they can do very little, in some cases nothing for themselves. If trust is developed, the child will have a sense of trust they can carry on into new relationships as they grow. So they will carry that trust with them throughout life. If trust is not properly developed, this will cause anxiety, insecurity, and mistrust of others throughout life. So you really just develop a sense of fear. If successfully completed, though, this leads to the virtue of hope that they can trust people, that they can develop relationships. Stage 2 is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This stage happens at roughly 18 months to 3 years of age. This is a time where children are beginning to explore their abilities. This should be encouraged whenever possible. But parents should shield children from constant failure and avoid criticism. So for instance, here you have a child who is attempting to put her own socks on. That kind of activity should absolutely be encouraged by parents, and that should be something that the child can do on their own. But if they cannot, if they're repeatedly struggling to put that sock on themselves, parents should shield them from repeated failures, because that is very harmful to the child, and they should go ahead and come back in and assist with putting that sock on until the child can successfully do that themselves. The parents also should avoid criticism of the child for not being able to do that. Properly completing this stage leads to confidence in abilities. Too much criticism or control will lead to feelings of inadequacy, low self-esteem, and dependency on others. If children do successfully complete this phase, they will develop the virtue of will. Next stage, stage 3. This would be initiative versus guilt. This stage is 3 to 5 years of age. As you can tell again by our photo, this is a time where children are spending more time with their peers and beginning to initiate activities with others through play. They learn to lead and they learn to make decisions. If children are criticized or made to feel like they are a bother, they will not develop this initiative. Especially when it comes to questioning, if children are made to feel like their questions aren't important and that they shouldn't be asking them, that's going to lead them, instead of to develop initiative, to kind of close back in on themselves. Excessive punishment and restriction will also limit initiative. That will also lead to a lack of creativity. And all of this, if children are encouraged in this stage of life to develop the virtue of purpose. Next is stage 4, industry versus inferiority. And this stage takes place during the ages 5 to 12. This is a time where children will want to win approval of their peer group by demonstrating that they are competent in different areas that are valued by society. As you can see from the photo, an example of this would be children wanting to be competent in athletics, showing off their talent for that. If children are encouraged and supported, they feel confident that they can achieve their goals. If they are not encouraged and supported, they will develop feelings of inferiority. So you're going to notice throughout a lot of these stages, encouragement is strongly supported, and criticism is something that you're really supposed to hold back on. It's not to say that there isn't a place for constructive criticism. That is something that children need, and there is some, they want you to shield children from failure, but at the same time there has to be a balance, and they are supposed to experience some failure, and they should experience constructive criticism to help them figure out where their talents lie and to help them have boundaries. So it is a balance, but you just can't be excessive with it. If stage 4 is successfully completed, this leads to the virtue of competence. Next is stage 5, identity versus role confusion, and this stage takes place between the ages of 12 and 18. It contains a search for self-identity, a search for adult roles. What are you going to do with your life once you become an adult? It's common to feel uncomfortable with one's own body at this time, but most people do grow into those changes successfully. If an identity is not formed at this time, this will lead to role confusion. And what role confusion really means is not knowing your role in society. Where do you fit? If you do successfully come to this self-acceptance, find your role, this will lead to the virtue of fidelity. And that really means having the ability to commit to others and accepting who they are. So you're committing because you've accepted who you are, and it makes it easier to accept who other people are as well. So I thought this was a good time for a little interaction, maybe a quick reflection. It is likely that everyone taking this course has completed stage 5. I want viewers to pause for a few seconds and contemplate the following questions. Did you have a strong sense of identity at 18? Did you have a strong grasp on what your role was going to be in society? So basically, when do you think you actually completed stage 5? So go ahead and pause for a minute and reflect on that. Welcome back. Hopefully you just paused the video for a short bit of reflection. I really wanted to stop at this time because I don't feel like I successfully completed stage 5 until about the age of 30. And I found it remarkable that, I know it was a different time, but the idea that someone would have completed that stage at 18 was a little bit shocking to me. And I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. So let's continue on with stage 6. This would be intimacy versus isolation. These are the young adult years of 18 to 40. This time centers on forming loving relationships. Long-term relationships are formed outside the family for a lot of people for the first time. This leads to happiness and stability. Not completing this phase could result in isolation and possibly depression. This will lead to the virtue of love. Now, this was an stage where I looked into it in a few different articles, and there was some conflicting information out there about, did this solely refer to romantic relationships, or does it also include friendships? And I did not get a definitive answer, so I can't tell you for sure. But again, I'd love for people to chime in the comments with their opinion if this should include friendship as well. Next is stage 7, generativity versus stagnation. This time is considered middle adulthood, or 40 to 65 years of age. So what generativity really refers to is people wanting to find a way to contribute or leave a mark. If contributions are not made, people stagnate. They're not moving forward in life. But if you are, striving towards making that mark, success here leads to the virtue of care. And this is our final stage. This is ego integrity versus despair. This is stage 65 years and up, and it continues on until death because, like I said at the beginning, you are always in a stage somewhere in life. This is a time where you want to see yourself as having led a successful life. If there are feelings of unproductiveness or guilt, it may lead to depression or hopelessness late in life. Success here, though, leads to the virtue of wisdom, and specifically it leads to a sense of closure and completeness. So I wanted to wrap up with a few questions. Several of them I alluded to already in my presentation. So here's my first question. Because society's views on romantic relationships have greatly changed since Erikson first put forth his theory, going back to the mid-20th century, do you think friendship should be included in the virtue of love? So basically, maybe even he started out only meaning it was romantic relationships, but do you think there is room for that to have changed? Do you think a virtue can be developed much later than the prescribed age? Obviously, that was the reflection that I had you hopefully stop for after stage 5. And finally, and that also is a great source of criticism. People say, you know, what happens if you do complete the phase but not on time? Are you still successfully developing that virtue? And my final question, just sort of interested to hear what people have to say, goes back to stage 7 in generativity. What are some ways you intend to leave a mark on the world? As teachers, I think we probably might have some similar answers there, but people can surprise you, so surprise me in the comments. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it.